This is a little bit different, but I want to take a moment to thank the huge number of employees that responded to the extensive flooding we experienced this week. We wouldn't be able to fit all of those employees in this room tonight with us, but they need to know that we appreciate their efforts. So thank you to our employees in police, fire, public works, parks, community services. Thank you to first responders, street crews braving the weather. Thank you to sanitation crews cleaning up after the storms. Thank you to all of our partners at Gregg County and our surrounding cities, as well as the American Red Cross and the Certified Emergency Response Team volunteers. We note there are a lot of homes and businesses that have experienced flood damage. Our thoughts and prayers are with all of those who were negatively impacted by this storm. Most importantly, though, I am very glad to hear that there were no major injuries reported and that everyone is safe. Yesterday we declared a state of emergency in the city of Longview to prepare ourselves for the disaster relief that's going to need to take place in the coming months to clean up after this tremendous storm that we had. We're very fortunate that it wasn't worse than it was, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But I want to first say that our team is very, very special. I was able to go to the emergency center yesterday, and just to see the people up there, Chief Steelman, Chief Bishop, Sean, Laura, the people that are up there taking care of us, to prepare us, to keep us safe, and to keep us looking forward, it's really phenomenal. If you've never seen it, you probably can't, because you have to have a little key to get up there that I don't even have. But you need to be very impressed with what your city and your county is doing to keep you safe and prepared, because I certainly was. And no one likes to have to declare a state of emergency, but sometimes it's necessary because we're going to be faced with a massive cleanup effort to combat these storms that have taken place in our community. And I was informed today that our request has been received, and they're working on it as we speak, and so I anticipate a favorable outcome for our community. Here's what I really want to impress on you. This was a very bad storm. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We had nearly 10 inches of rain in a very short amount of time. But understand this, the Sabine River will not peak until Friday at noon, is my understanding. And it's going to peak at 36.2 feet, which is above our floodplain. So please, just because it's not raining now does not mean that this threat of danger is over, because it's not. Those waters will continue to rise, and even when they start receding, there's always danger. Water is a very, very powerful phenomenon. Never underestimate it. Please be safe. Please use good judgment. Check on your neighbors. Make sure they're okay. And I want to tell you something. As I got to thinking about this, I know we've had some pretty bad storms in our community before, but none that I can remember were like this. And I think it was pointed out to me that the last really major storm like this was in 1967. And I was born then, but I don't remember it. But I can tell you this, our forefathers, those that have come before us on this council, really, I would like to say saved the day in this, because had things not been done years and years ago, Longview would be submerged right now. With the flow of Grace Creek and Guthrie Creek and the tributaries that come off of Sabine for us, Little Cypress, had planning not been done years ago by mayors and council with incredible foresight and incredible thought processes, we would really be in a significantly different position than we are today. And it starts all the way back with Mayor Lou Gallacy. Back in the 1980s, 89, he started developing a plan, and then Martha Whitehead took it over from there. And they progressed this forward until we began collecting a sales tax, a quarter-cent drainage tax, to start paying for drainage projects in our community. And then David McWhorter took that ball and started running with it. Earl Roberts went from there, and then Murray Moore even after that. And I can tell you, those mayors and those councils involved with that really put forth a collaborative effort that we're reaping the benefits of today. Because had that not happened, I promise you, we would be in such a worse position. We've spent roughly $93 million since the late 80s to now on capital improvement projects and drainage projects. that have gone towards widening our creeks, making our waterways more passable, keeping the waters off of our roads. And had that not taken place, like I say, we would be in a far worse shape than we are. So, I just want to tell you, my thanks, my hands go out to those prior mayors and prior councils, because those were tough decisions to spend money like that, to take out bonds, to pass bonds, to incur debt. It's tough to do when you sit up here and you don't want to have to do those kind of things, but am I thankful that took place? Yes, I am, and I know you all are too. And I want to just point that out to you all tonight, that we owe a debt of gratitude. So when you see some of them have passed, but some of them have not. When you see them, shake their hand and say thank you, because they really saved us from having a catastrophe in our community this week and in the years to come as well. We'll continue these projects, but just so you know, those are things that are hard to do as a council when you have to raise taxes and you have to incur debt, but thank goodness we had foresight to do that in our past. So enough of that. Thank you all, and I appreciate your time. And all those have responded. Just an amazing effort on our part. Citizen comment. I have some speaker cards tonight, but most of these have to do with zoning. I have one on an action item that has to do with the food trucks. Reggie, do you want to speak now, or do you want to wait till the action item comes up? You want to come now? Okay, come on. Reggie Timms.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Just have some thoughts written down. I'm going to read from my letter because I want to make sure I didn't jumble them or make a mistake. But my name is Reggie Timms, and I'm a board member of the Longview Girls Softball Association. I'm standing before you today to provide some information I feel needs to be heard in reference to the city allowing food trucks in our city parks. I'll begin with a little background history on what the LGSA has provided to help the young ladies of Longview in providing a softball league to play. LGSA built the original concession building at McCorder Park and later doubled the size of the building to include restroom storage, ice machine, and additional serving windows. LGSA paid for the asphalt drive from Toller Road to the concession building. At this time, we were playing 4 games a night on 2 adult-sized fields, except on Wednesdays, but all day on Saturday. LGSA kept going to the city and asking if we could cut the 2 larger fields down and make 4. The city finally agreed, but said they didn't have the money. LGSA got a matching $49,000 grant and ended up putting over $60,000 plus the $49,000 and got the 4 fields built without any help from the city monetary-wise. LGSA also paid for fencing, lights, sprinkler system for the new fields plus the area between the fields. SWEPCO provided the poles and we paid for the dirt. We were planning for 2 more additional fields. It was also in the works as far as dirt work was concerned, but we held off spending any more money because we were told that a new girls softball complex was coming, so therefore we held off. Moving on to Lear Park, LGSA spent a lot of time with Sam Satterwhite in the design of the buildings that are presently our concession stands. When fields 1 through 4 were built, again, the city did not have the money to outfit the concession buildings, and the fields were left open-ended. Again, LGSA spent the money to outfit the concession stand. The buildings were not closed in, so it couldn't be locked at the 4 openings, and LGSA did the following items to get everything else that needed to be done. The cost of the following was $52,000 before a game was ever played. We outfitted the concession stand with refrigerators, fryers, lamps, freezers, drink coolers, cooking equipment, air conditioning, windows that pull down with metal doors that could be locked, a monitored security system, flag poles installed, and we had a phone line put in for the security system. A few important things I think the city council should take notice. LGSA does not turn away a kid that does not have money. LGSA gave 5 scholarships last year to kids in our league, an expense that will probably be the first to cut if food trucks are allowed in these parks. We've given 37 scholarships since 2006, 5 last year. There's absolutely no plus to having the food trucks at our youth complex. At the time Lear Park was started, we had an agreement written up by Randy Aiken, our LGSA legal advisor at the time, and signed that stated LGSA would have concession rights as part of the $52,000 we spent on the Lear Park startup, which also included concession rights for fields 5 through 8 that were, built later. In closing, the LGSA board members spent a lot of time putting spring, summer, and fall leagues together and also tournaments. This is volunteer work putting this together, therefore we're not paid to do this. We do this because we love providing a league for youth girls in our area to come and enjoy and learn the game of softball. We count on our concessions to help provide these expenses needed to keep these leagues going year-round. We are a nonprofit organization. How many teams and leagues do the food truck owners bring to the park? All they do is take money away from our concessions and have the opportunity to doom us financial-wise to where we have to come up with alternatives to keep the leagues going, as in cutting scholarships and possibly charging admission. It is sad to me to know that the city of Longview would allow these food trucks into our parks and make a profit off of the volunteer work done by so many to make our league successful with only a mere $25 a day fee. Thank y'all for letting me speak.
Thank you, Reggie. Appreciate you. I have no more speaker cards. Would anyone like to speak and fill out a card when we're completed? Very well. Okay, now we're to public safety update. Chief Bishop.
Mayor Mack, council members, Mr. Willard, good evening. Want to start out tonight with giving you just a quick update on our activity for the month of February. Again, we had another busy month in February where we answered a total of 9,689 calls. We arrested 158 individuals. 11 of those were felony arrests with a total of 13 charges, and 147 misdemeanor arrests with a total of 234 charges. So we had another busy month. This past Monday, we hired 5 new officers that started at the East Texas Police Academy and the Academy. This currently leaves us with 170 of our positions filled with only 2 vacancies. And we do have 2 applicants that are currently in background now, and we look to having those 2 positions on here in the very near future. Mayor, last council meeting, we talked a little bit about property crimes and some things associated with the different property crimes that have been occurring. I decided to take a look at it for January and February. And just to kind of show you, during the month of January and February, we had 130 residential burglaries and 190 vehicle burglaries. And how these are broken down, I broke it down a little bit just to kind of show you the method of operation or how these burglaries are occurring. In our home and our residential burglaries, the method of operation, the number one MO associated with the residential burglaries is the individuals or the suspects are making entry through unlocked doors. In a few of the cases, they're forcing their way through the doors and are forcing their way through windows. The targets of our residential burglaries, or the property that they're targeting, are electronics, tools, appliances, and weapons. The same time period, January, February, our vehicle burglaries were 190. And again, if you look at the method of operation, again, they're making entry through unlocked vehicles. In some cases, they're prying the doors and breaking the windows. And we're having a big problem with thefts that are occurring out of the truck beds of the pickup trucks, especially at your Lowe's and Home Depot and construction places where things are being stolen out of the beds of the truck. In the vehicle burglaries, the targets are purses and cash, auto parts, tools, and again, weapons. Just since November of last year and the beginning of this month, we have had over 100 weapons, respectively, that have been taken in residential burglaries and in vehicle burglaries. So weapons, while they're listed as number 4 here, are pretty high target that these individuals are looking for. Some of the prevention efforts that we can do, that we all can do to help secure our property, is to make sure that we properly secure our home and our vehicles. Don't advertise your belongings or property. I would encourage everybody to participate in Operation ID, inscribing their property with an identifiable number, or serial number or other number that they can give to us to identify their property with. We recover a lot of property that we never get back to the owners because we can't, either it's not reported, or at the time of the offense they can't give us the proper serial numbers and things associated with the property that was taken. Neighborhood crime watch groups, we'd encourage individuals to participate in that. And then also, all of our 6 PAR officers are certified crime prevention specialists. They're specially trained in crime prevention. And we do offer home or business security surveys. Well, they will come out to your home or your business and look at what you have and offer any crime prevention techniques that they can pass on to the business owner or the homeowner. And then at longviewpolice.com, under our services tab, we have a whole lot more information related to crime prevention and some different recommendations that individuals can take to help harden and secure their homes and vehicles. All right, you also asked me to update you on our crime analysis software and where we were at on that and a little bit about this software. As you remember, back the later part of last year, we had that conversation about the ability to have the community to be able to see what is going on in their neighborhood. We received an email from a gentleman, James Kelt, that lives here in Longview, Texas, that works for Geographic Technologies Group. He reached out to us to help solve some of the issues that we were having with that. And also at the same time, toward the end of last year, I had a businessman come to me that at this time wanted to remain anonymous, and he had visited with his employees, and they had some money that they wanted to donate to the police department, something that we could use that would really help the police department and benefit the community. So after visiting with the representative from Geographic Technologies Group and the donor, we were able to get a donation that would help pay for and cover the cost of this software package, so we're very grateful for that. The software package is, like I said, is offered by Geographic Technologies Group, and it comes in two different packages. One is Map Nimbus, and the other is Vantage Point, and I'm going to talk about each one of them, kind of give you a little breakdown on what each one of them does. The Map Nimbus portion of it is a public mapping application that will allow our citizens to access important, relevant information from their local government, from the police department, in their neighborhoods, and see what types of crimes are occurring in their respective neighborhoods. Vantage Points is the state-of-the-art powerful GIS viewer application that allows public safety agencies, that'll be our portion of it, that we'll have that'll help us to be able to analyze different crimes that are occurring, see different trends, see what's happening and where we need to put our resources out to help address some of these issues. The Map Nimbus, again, this is the public portal. Some of the things and features and benefits that they will have, they'll be able to do an address search or a find location. It's accessible to use anywhere. You can access it from your phone. There'll be an embedded link on the city and the PD website to be able to access the portal. They can view incidents in a specific date range. It'll give a graphical visualization and representation. And it'll hopefully improve public awareness, potentially leading to reduced crime and improved quality of life. And these are the two screenshots of what the viewer would see, and you can see that the different icons, and you would hover over that, and then it would tell you a little bit about the incident that occurred. So you can have it in this GIS format or just on a basic map. They'll be able to look at it that way as well. The Vantage Point, which will be the public safety portion of that, utilizes current GIS infrastructure. It has an increased ability to analyze and respond to incidents. We can map all incidents and calls for service. And the good thing about this here is it's going to be able to provide us real-time information that's going to be available to the officers. So when the officers get in their car, they'll be able to pull this up on their computer, and they're going to be able to see what happened in their area in the last 24 hours. So it's going to be a very good tool for us. It's going to have a historic call mapping feature. It'll allow us to generate custom reports based on different crimes, different MOs, different times that the crime is occurring. and it's going to be an increased tool for our crime analysis and our ability to take a look at the different crimes that are occurring and how to best address them. And this will show you a couple of screenshots here on what that'll look like. Again, the regular GIS overlay and then the regular map one. One of the features that it has here is they have what they refer to as heat mapping, and you can see how when the crimes start occurring, it starts showing you the different areas that you need to pay attention to because you have a certain crime that's occurring there. So we're real excited about this, and we're ready to get it implemented. Kind of an implementation schedule. In October of 2015, we had a demonstration of the product when the funds were donated to us in December of 2015. Just last month, I signed a contract to purchase the software product. Today, we had a kickoff meeting on how we're going to set this up. April 4th, they're going to begin the software install and our system setup. And then in May of 2016, we're going to conduct training on it. And hopefully by the end of the month, we'll go live with this new software package. Again, I'd like to remind everybody of our Women's Safety Seminar. It'll be from 6 to 9 p.m., April 18th to 23rd at Mod Cobb. We'll cover women's safety, workplace violence, handgun safety, firearm simulator, and we'll have a day at the firing range. So if anybody's interested in that, please contact Christy Bryan at 903-808-3388. Then to close out, yesterday when we were getting ready to leave the EOC, we were checking social media for different events, and I happened to stumble along this meme that somebody had posted where they thought the Longview PD was still out there serving warrants from our warrant roundup. So I don't know who created this and who put it up there, but it was some good humor at the end of a very long day. So, any questions?
Chief, first off, that interactive mapping is going to be fantastic for the community, and I applaud you all for being so technologically advanced and keeping us up to date. I think it'll give people a really good sense of where we are and what's going on, and plus it helps deter crime. So hats off to you guys. Thanks for implementing this and keeping going, and thanks for presenting like I asked you to last time. I appreciate that very much. One other question, Chief. You said you're at 170 now?
170. Yes,
How long has it been since you've been at 170, Chief?
it's been a long time.
I'm going to ask you that every time you come up, you know that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chief Stillman.
Mayor Mack, Council, Mr. Wheeler, thanks for the opportunity to present to you today. Just to update you on a few things that we've been working on since the last council meeting. One of the more fun parts of my job is when I see the younger personnel of our department being upwardly mobile in our chain of command and our structure. I certainly want to recognize these most recent 5 employees that have taken the next step in their career. Far right, beginning with Captain Chris Gray, who made the promotion from lieutenant to captain. To his right, the next one over toward the left is Ryan Howard, who made the move from driver engineer to lieutenant. That's the first supervisory step in our department. The next one over there in the middle is Matthew Kropchuk. Matthew made the move from firefighter paramedic to driver engineer. Next to him is Michael Matthews. He made the move from firefighter medic to driver engineer. And then the big guy there next to me, Josh Parrish. He's a good guy to have in your side when you're in a bad place. He made the move from firefighter engineer to firefighter medic to driver engineer. So I'm certainly proud to see each and one of these people taking that next step. I'm encouraged. It's motivating for me. I know they're excited. I can remember being there back several years ago, hitting those different marks in your tenure. It keeps us moving forward and keeps us being progressive. So I thank them for taking that next move. Another thing that we got to be involved with, and you mentioned the water rescue, and I'm certainly going to talk about it after this slide, but the fire department does a lot more than just respond, the normal everyday ambulance response, fire truck response that you see going up and down the streets every day pretty much. We're involved in a lot of specialty function, and one of those, and I've talked about this one before, is our wildland firefighting aspect. We're fortunate enough to have some state assets here in Longview to help us with the wildfire problem. Certainly right now it's not an issue, but it's just a matter of time that all this good rain is going to fertilize a lot of vegetation, and it will become a problem later on in the year when things start to dry out. Several of our employees had the opportunity back a week ago to go down to Nacogdoches and do some collaborative training with the Nacogdoches Fire Department, the Lufkin Fire Department, and Appleby Fire Department, along with the Texas A&M Forest Service, on doing a prescribed burn where they got to practice some techniques, some tactics, use the equipment, and work together. And as I've told you guys before, this is pretty much how the state has queued us up to respond collaboratively anywhere in the state when these big wildfires pop out. When you see 200,000 acres burning somewhere, there's a pretty good chance we're going to have some skin in the game and have some help going out there. Just as in turn, when we have the problem here, we want the help coming our way. So we're very fortunate that we were able to participate in that and that we're able to get some good hands-on training like we did a week ago. The weather, and I realize some of these slides after watching the earlier presentation may be a little repetitive. It was a busy day. It started out early and it didn't stop. I mean, we were in the EOC and still making a few responses even through the night. And fortunately, this morning things had calmed down. The waters had receded enough that we were able to pull the plug on a lot of the additional ramping up that we had done and kind of get things back to normal. And as you mentioned, we still have a lot of cleanup, a lot of mitigative efforts ahead of us, but I feel pretty confident that we'll have a good handle on that. And I'm very impressed with the level of preparation. And I'm not just talking about the fire department here. I'm talking about everybody that has a stake in emergency management. And it starts with our leadership, Mayor. I was very pleased to have you come up there yesterday and to have your support along with Judge Stout from the county side. It takes every aspect of those spokes in the wheel to keep it moving forward and to keep us ahead of the game, and we were certainly there. And as the emergency management coordinator, that kind of support keeps us on cue and keeps us moving forward. So thank you for that. One of the things that I do want to speak about, yesterday morning as I was driving around town kind of surveying and anticipating and planning where some of our problems were going to be, I actually got stuck with a little bit of traffic duty. I was actually going down H.D. Mosley when Grace Creek swole up over the roadway there at the walking trail and started flooding the roadway. So I took the initial action of blocking the road off and was waiting on help to get to the other side of it on the far side, the west side of the creek, to help stop traffic. I was utterly amazed at how many people just disregarded their own safety and continued to drive through the water as it was rising. It was scary in my mind, and I've got some numbers there just to kind of paint the picture for you. Some of our water rescue assets, you see those in the pictures and you've seen them on the other slides. Between 5 in the morning and 8 p.m. on the 9th, the fire department water rescue team responded to 27 incidents of rescuing people from the water. 26 of those were water rescues from vehicles, people just blindly driving into the standing water until their car stalled out, was overtaken by the water, in some cases up to the doors. You can see in several of the pictures where people are standing on the roof or the trunk of their car just waiting on somebody to come help them. All of these could have been avoided. I mean, your car is not a boat. Don't use it that way. It's not intended. 1 foot of water is enough to make your vehicle as heavy as you think it is, and you can have the biggest, baddest truck, and it will become buoyant. And just like you said, the force of that water is impressive. It's amazing. We're actually involved right now, and I hope it's just a vehicle recovery over in Harrison County with our water rescue personnel, where the people still aren't accounted for. We don't know if there's someone in the vehicle. We don't know if they were taken downstream. We're hoping it's just a vehicle out there and the people were nowhere around. It'll be days before we're able to verify that until the waters recede and the force of the water kind of slows down a little bit. And you know, we recognized some people earlier this year that were involved in a water recovery. It will take your life. Don't risk it. I promise you it's not worth it. And it's amazing how many people, it's like, I'm from the country, so a calf looking at a new gate when they realize that I can't go the way to work that I normally go, and they're at a standstill. And they're lost. I promise you, it's not worth risking driving through that. You don't know if there's a roadway under that water or not when you get out there. We've had several examples of sinkholes opening up when these roadways are flooded, that vehicle's just going to run off, and now guess what? You thought it was just going to be up to your tire, and now it's over your head. So that's my message is you're right. We're not out of the woods. We still have some water. We've got water from the north that's still going to come down on us for the next few days with all this flow. So we still could have some dangerous situations. So just be cautious, and I'll do my turnaround, don't drown. This is a national campaign. These are just simple words of advice. It's kind of like the gamble you take when you go through the crossing arms at the railroad track. You know, there's a chance there's not a train coming, but if there is, I promise you it's not going to stop. Okay, so just take your time and be smart. Heed the advice and the warnings. We had people driving around barricades yesterday. They're there for a reason. Pay attention. The last slide I want to talk about is Safety City. You're familiar with Safety City across the street. We're preparing to celebrate the 25th anniversary of that facility. That's a phenomenal facility that we're fortunate enough to have here in the city. The closest one of that same caliber is in Frisco. And they've got a state-of-the-art. Theirs is a lot newer than ours. And just to make you aware that we actually have a fundraising effort underway to make some improvements and expansion to Safety City. They're just early into that, but there'll be some information there. This is a RSVP deal, but the public is certainly invited if they want to attend and learn more about what Safety City does and what our plans are for the future. The city has been a great supporter of this since its inception in 1991, and we certainly look forward to another 25 years and hopefully making this better so that we can educate the children and the youth in our community in terms of fire safety, traffic safety, bicycle safety, and all the great work that goes on over there. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chief, first of all, thanks again for all that you guys did. I know you guys were all up late and worked hard. And also, thank you for inviting me to the promotional ceremonies. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make the last one, but keep inviting me. I want to be there because those are special times for recognition, and I hope to be a part of those as much as I can. Thank you for including me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all. Okay, we're to presentation items. We're going to switch the agenda a little bit. We're going to do presentation B first. So presentation of the fiscal year 2014-2015 comprehensive annual financial report. Ms. Adrienne Deason.
Good evening. I'm Adrienne Deason. I'm a partner with Henry & Peters CPA firm, and we were engaged to audit the City of Longview's financial statements for September 30th, 2015. And I'm here this evening to present the results of our audit. You should have in front of you a big notebook. I see several of you picking it up. I'm going to summarize everything in that notebook, so you don't have to read the whole thing at this moment. But our audit, as part of the audit engagement, we've been asked to do two things, and that's to give our opinion as to whether the financial statements prepared by the Finance Department are materially correct, and are the grant programs that are federally and state funded requiring complying with their grant compliance. So during the grant audit this year, we specifically audited the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, the Home Investment Partnership Program, and the Texas Intrastate Fire Mutual Aid System Grant Assistance Program. Based on the audit that we've performed, it is our opinion that the city has complied with the material compliance requirements of these grants. And we've also reported that we found no material weaknesses in the internal controls over compliance. Government auditing standards also require that we issue a report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance with certain laws, regulations, and contracts. We've issued our report stating that we found no material weaknesses, no deficiencies in the internal controls over financial reporting, and also no compliance matters to report. The third and final report that we issue is our audit report on the city's financial statements. And based on the audit evidence that we've obtained, we are issuing an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. And we've also, in addition this year, we've also included an emphasis of a matter paragraph in our report, which highlights a major change in the financial statements for 2015. The Government Audit Accounting Standards Board has issued GASB Statement Number 68, which requires governments to record their long-term liabilities for their pension plans on the face of their financial statements rather than in a footnote further back in the financial statements as it was before. The city participates in two retirement plans for their employees, Texas Municipal Retirement System and the Longview Firemen's Relief and Retirement Fund. These two funds combined equate to a net pension liability of approximately $70 million. So what GASB is wanting to do with this change is they're wanting to highlight, and they want you, if you step back and you look at the government as a whole, rather than on a fund-by-fund basis, and you consider this liability that's intended to be paid out over the long term, and you record that on your financial statements, your unrestricted net position is reduced to a negative amount. What that means is today, at this point, that you're not yet prepared to meet those obligations in the future. Again, these liabilities are years down the road, but I think the GASB's hope is that by highlighting this, that it will start to stimulate conversation and allow you to plan and prepare for how you may meet these obligations in the future. So that concludes my presentation on the audit results. I would like to thank the council for entrusting us to provide this service to the city. I'd also like to thank the city manager's office and the finance department for assisting us in getting the audit completed, because they're very accommodating and they're very easy to work with, and we appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Any questions? I would like to thank Angela Cohen, our finance director, and all her staff that has helped put this together and taken care of us financially. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Henry and Peters. Appreciate y'all very much.
Certainly.
Could I make a quick statement, Mayor?
Please.
I just want to echo that this GASB 68, that's purely a present value liability of future value cash flows that aren't going to have to be met for years and years. All the cities, all the governmental entities had that show up on their audits this year, so we're not alone in that. The bond rating agencies have taken this into account, so there's, at this point, no red flag attached to the city of Longview, Texas, just because we have a negative $19 million unrestricted fund balance. So I just wanted to emphasize that we don't need to panic.
Very good. Mr. Willard.
Just to talk a little bit about what Mr. Moore talked about on these unfunded future liabilities for the pension funds. I think it's very important, 2 points. Number one, the Texas Municipal retirement system for most of the general government city employees several years ago took some major steps as a pension fund at the state level to reduce some of these liabilities and to change some of the benefit structures to really bring down the overall liabilities, and you'll be seeing as a result these things have really TMRS is in very good shape as a result of those. Also on the fire pension fund, I just want to give some kudos to the fire department and their employees. Recently we've been working with them, and Ms. Ishihara has also worked very closely with their board about the fire department as a whole voted to reduce and change some of their benefits going forward long term in the fire pension fund, and that's going to really make a huge difference in these liabilities going forward as well. So, you know, it sounds good for everybody, so we're going to reduce our benefits, but when they have to vote on it to actually do it themselves, I think that speaks very highly of people that want to help preserve these benefits and pensions in the long run for those that follow behind them. So I know it's having to book these liabilities this year, you know, at first blush doesn't look good necessarily, or you want to think about that, but both of these pension funds are really making moves and have made moves to ensure the health going forward. So,
Thank you, sir. Okay. Presentation A. We're going to discuss and consider adoption of 2012 International Property Maintenance Codes. Mr. Shirley.
Thank you, Mayor Mack, members of council, Mr. Willard. Here to talk about implementation and adoption of the 2012 International Property Maintenance Code. This was one of the major themes coming out of the comprehensive plan. This was something that through all the public input, that was a major theme that we heard, is how do we combat neighborhood blight and issues in our neighborhoods. And as you can see here in the neighborhood and livability portion, provide and coordinate programs to prevent the deterioration of buildings, landscape, and parking areas. And so what we're proposing is that the property maintenance code is a tool to help address that issue. It's one of the tools that we would have at our disposal. Under existing city code, Chapter 19, Buildings and Structures, Chapter 19 addresses substandard and dangerous buildings, secured buildings, and multifamily housing. Prevention of deterioration or property maintenance is only addressed within the multifamily section, dealing with multifamily complexes. Adoption of the IPMC would help prevent demolition by neglect and would include single-family, multifamily, commercial properties, including equipment and land associated with those. The benefits of using a model code versus drafting our own ordinance is that you have clarity and consistency. Your language speaks with all your other codes that you've adopted for building and construction. It's better coordinated with all of those because it is somewhat of a construction-related code. So you have that clarity and consistency rather than having, like we find from time to time, many of our ordinances written at different times have different language in them. The chapter topics in the property maintenance code, and it's not a big code. I brought a copy. It's about 40 pages, and a lot of that is index and definitions. But the topics, the general requirements dealing with exterior property, swimming pools, spas and hot tubs, exterior structure, interior structure, component serviceability, handrails and guardrails, rubbish and garbage and pest elimination. And some of those we already have ordinances that deal with that. So a lot of that we would just amend some of our ordinances to be more clear and consistent. Also dealing with light, ventilation, and occupancy limitations, plumbing facilities and fixture requirements, mechanical and electrical requirements, fire safety requirements, and then boarding and securing of buildings. Under the general requirements, it's very broad in scope. It's general requirements, includes a variety of requirements for the exterior property areas as well as the interior and exterior elements of the structure. It's intended to maintain a minimum level of safety and sanitation. It includes specific criteria for regulating installation and maintenance of building components, maintenance on vacant structures and land, safety, sanitation, and appearance of interior and exterior of structure in all exterior property areas, also accessory structures, vehicle storage regulations, swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs. Under light, ventilation, and occupancy limitations, it establishes minimum requirements for light and ventilation and identifies occupancy limitations, including restrictions to prevent overcrowding. And as you can see in this picture, this is a residence that has a boarded up window but still occupied, and that could present a safety issue as a means of egress in an emergency. Plumbing systems and fixtures, it establishes minimum criteria for installation, maintenance, and location of those systems. It establishes minimum criteria to verify that sanitary and clean conditions exist in occupied buildings. It's dependent upon certain basic plumbing principles, including providing potable water to a building, providing the basic fixtures to effectively utilize that water, and properly removing waste from the building. Under mechanical and electrical, it also establishes minimum performance requirements for heating, electrical, and mechanical facilities, and to establish minimum standards for the safety of these facilities. And as you can see here, this is a picture where somebody's using their stove as their heater. Under our codes, we don't require AC, but we do require heat because it's, when we have cold weather, that's a very important, also important for maintaining water systems from freezing and causing other issues. So it would allow some standards there. Also, fire safety requirements. It addresses fire hazards that arise as the result of a building's occupancy and provides minimum requirements for fire safety issues that are most likely to arise in older buildings. Specifically addresses means of egress in existing buildings, including path of travel, required egress width, means of egress doors, and emergency escapes. Under the appendix, the boarding standards, it regulates the boarding materials and specifications and regulates procedures for installation, because in certain situations where it is appropriate to board up a building because it's vacant but not substandard, the way in which you do that can have a positive or negative impact on the neighborhood. And so it has regulations there. main question is, why do we need property maintenance? It's to prevent demolition by neglect. We have the tools when a property gets to that point to where we can go in and declare it substandard or a nuisance and take it to municipal court and either have them demolish it, or in cases we can go in and do that. But we don't have anything to prevent it from getting to that point. We have regulations for building and construction, but nothing for maintenance to prevent it to get to that point. And I think we can solve a lot of issues by being able to have preventative maintenance along the way and thus prevent that demolition by neglect. Lack of maintenance is not a parameter to be considered unfit for human occupancy under that substandard. City code does not address emergency utility disconnects as well. So if there's a structure that is just in very bad shape where it could catch fire or what have you, we have no mechanism to do that. Also, city code has already put a premium on tenant rights, but only with multifamily. We have a multifamily ordinance where we permit them, and we have minimum standards that the owners have to maintain them. There's some tenant requirements there too, that they have a responsibility. So we've already put an emphasis on tenants, but only in multifamily. We don't have any mechanism in other housing or occupancy types, whether it be single-family rentals or duplexes or anything like that. So the property maintenance code would provide a tool for holding owners accountable, which directly combats neighborhood blight while also protecting tenant rights. In egregious situations, the city could have the ability to protect tenants from deteriorating interiors as well. And that's one of the things that we've had questions. Well, why do we need to have the right to regulate inside someone's home? Who are you to come in my home? And this is only going to really be applicable when we're called out there. This does not give us the right to come into anybody's house. There's due process for that. We'd only be able to come in and investigate if invited. And generally speaking, I think only in a situation where it's tenant-based, they're going to complain. I don't know of anybody that's going to call and complain on their owner-occupied house on themselves. So, you know, those would be the situations where it would be exterior enforcement. How would this property maintenance code be implemented? It would be a complaint-driven process. Also, it would be an active part of our neighborhood revitalization sweep. So when we're in those areas, this would be one of the things that we're looking for. Primary focus on compliance would be on the exterior of the properties because that has the biggest and most impact to our neighborhoods. However, interior enforcement, as I say, would be complaint-driven, primarily on tenant-based properties and where the city was invited in. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, council? Mr. Wright?
Mr. Shirley, you know, when we've talked about this at the construction meetings, you mentioned that you would probably go through the code and bring to us to vote on what you thought was necessary, where there was interior items that that you weren't going to police. You were going to take those out of there. Is that still the plan, or are we?
Yeah, and we are going through and looking, because under Chapter 19, there's several areas where we may want to modify our existing codes to just reference to the property maintenance code, or where we may want to use an existing definition versus a definition in the property maintenance code. As far as what it regulates on the interior of the structures, you know, it's primarily going to be those structural issues where maybe there's the ceiling's falling in or the floor's gone, or it's structural. Our intent is to not go out and be the paint and wallpaper police. You know, it'd be those more structural components. So we would definitely make sure that we don't want to have that authority to go out and regulate paint. Now, on an exterior, that might be a little more important, especially if it's a wood frame house where that's a waterproofing material. You know, then we might be looking at that paint in that situation.
What about pools and hot tubs and spas when they're in somebody's backyard and they're not really bothering anybody?
We already have ordinances that deal with how those are to be maintained. So what we would do is just make sure that that's consistent with our already rules. And if our rules, or maybe the language is not as well written as the property maintenance code, that's where having the standardized code would be better in place of our ordinances. But we already have standards as far as those have to be maintained so they don't create safety hazards or unsafe, unsanitary conditions where they're not maintained.
Well, one of my concerns is that down the road, you may not want to be the interior police and check everybody's paint and wallpaper, but I would like to see these things written so that if we get somebody who's overzealous down the road, or if we get somebody who says, and I know this isn't going to happen, but it has in the past where somebody said, wants some property, and he's in a position where he can ding somebody on a house and the people can't afford to get it fixed, and all of a sudden he can just purchase the property because the people have to get out of there. I would like to see these things written so that that's not something that can happen.
Sure, and that's one of the things that we're looking for, because there are some of those tools, powers that we don't want, because we don't want to have somebody make us go enforce the code that is something like that. Remember also that if this is adopted down the road, if we find that something's not working, we can always come back and look at it again and change it, take it away, what have you. We always have the ability to make a change there. To talk about the situation where you're bringing up where somebody may not have the funds, that's another thing that we're looking at. You know, we're very sensitive that this will have an impact on people that may not have the means. We do have resources. There's some grants available through Housing and Community Development for critical home repair and things like that for people that may qualify. And part of the process in talking with people, and as we've done with our code sweeps, we go out and talk with people and find out what their needs are. We'd be passing this information along. We're also looking at community partners that have an interest in neighborhood revitalization that can come in and help these people that don't have the means to fix those basic needs.
Excuse me. Mr. Shirley, a couple of questions. Starting off, how would this affect land vegetation as far as grass and weeds and stuff such as that compared to what we currently do first?
It would not, and that's one of the things that we'll be doing, making sure that it's consistent with our existing ordinances and making those exceptions where need be. We're not looking to strengthen our existing ordinances as it relates to our tall grass and weeds and nuisance abatement there.
Well, I would like to see you strengthen those.
Okay.
That's one of the problems. All right, now you mentioned on plumbing systems, compared to current building codes, how would this affect plumbing systems?
Currently, we don't have the ability to go into an existing house where a plumbing system is not up to code or not functioning. This would give us the ability, based on a complaint, to go in and probably in a tenant-based situation, make the landlord fix the plumbing system to code to where it's operational or functioning properly.
Well, what if it is operational, but it just doesn't meet, I'm sure it can be, can it not be operational and still not meet up-to-date codes as far as plumbing is concerned?
Probably not. I mean, there's, you know, generally if it's not meeting code, it might be operational, but it's probably not safe. And so that's what we're looking at is it needs, you know, in these basic systems, which would be plumbing, electrical,
okay,
that we, you know, to ensure tenant safety and operationability.
One other thing, what I would call yard art. In other words, people may have things out in their front yard, whether it's a potted plant, whether it's I was in the scrap metal business, and I've seen a lot of scrap metal I haul to the steel mills that people would put in their front yard and call it art. How are you going to work around yard displays?
Well, and we're not, the adoption of the property maintenance code, as I said, we already have ordinances that deal with junk and litter and nuisance in yards. You know, if we get a complaint and it's, you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure,
yes,
you know, we'd be sensitive to that. But if it becomes a nuisance and it's causing a problem, then we would address it.
Is there something more in this ordinance that would be stricter than what we currently have as far as front yards?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
As it relates to that, it basically is very generic. And our local ordinances are a little more strict there.
Yard art, gotta love it. I love this ordinance. It's been 2 years at least in the making. I want to begin by thanking you and your staff for your diligence in bringing this forth to us. I like the fact that it is complaint-driven, because as a council member, I have walked into my constituents' homes, and their floors are pretty much absent, and I almost fell. So I can only imagine those types of living conditions, nonetheless to say that that will affect the person who owns that home and is renting it. This is a great legal recourse for us. One question I do have, we discussed junk cars in regard to yard art, Mr. Allen. Is that something that we are going to implement in this as well, or will that come later in regulating the numbers of junk vehicles? Because I know your staff has been ticketing people for that if they're not running for so many days, but we have several areas that have numerous junk vehicles. So how will this affect that issue?
It probably won't impact it, because we already have ordinances that are pretty strict on that. As far as dealing with junk vehicles, there's state law that dictates what a junk vehicle is. I guess it was a handful of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when we amended our parking regulations for single family, where we took a step there. We did strengthen our junk vehicle parking through that mechanism. I think previously it was 4 or 5 that we allowed in the backyard. Now we only allow 2 junk vehicles in the backyard behind a fence. We don't allow any in the front. So
I'd like to look into that maybe later, just a little bit, because there are areas where, although we say 4 to 5 in the backyard, their neighbors with a fence in between can still see those junk vehicles, and those are problematic. Let's see, I had another question. Would you share the example in speaking about prevention of demolition by neglect?
correct.
In regard to what we have now on the books, so people can have the visual, our citizens can, what we have on the books now in regard to boarding up a residential or a commercial structure versus where we're going with this particular adoption of the code?
So currently, in order for a building to be declared a nuisance and substandard, it has to have basically very structural defects. Essentially, it's unfit for human habitation. But if you've got a structure that, you know, maybe a tree fell on it and you've got a little bit of disrepair and they've got some tarps on it, or maybe they've got, you know, some physical deterioration, we don't have the mechanism to require them to repair it. But if it goes for so long without being repaired, that can grow. You know, you can have rotted wood that, you know, the interior ceiling could start falling in to the point to where you start having needing demolition because of the neglect. And that's kind of a term that we use with historic preservation.
Right.
Because when you leave a house to just sit, that's what it does. It just deteriorates to the point to where it just falls in on itself. And we want to prevent that. You know, we don't want to have to tear down houses, but we don't want them to get to that point either. We want people to take pride in their neighborhoods and hold them accountable. We have the mechanism if it gets to that point where we can go in, and my hope is that at some point down the road, and we have a new building inspector that's actively pursuing those substandard structures, that at some point we'll get to a point to where we're monitoring demolition, we're monitoring property maintenance and those structures that are affected through natural disasters only, not through just neglect.
And right now, we don't have anything in place that states when you board up a house or a commercial building that you have to use a certain type of material, correct?
Not really.
But with this, that will give us more authority so that it can look a little more uniformed if in the event someone has to board up a structure, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shorty, would you email us a copy of your presentation.
Absolutely, and I know that the code is available online, and I will send you all a link to that as well so that you can breeze through that. And if you have any questions after the fact, please give me a call. I'll be happy to try to answer them as best I can.
Mr. Allen?
As we're going through all of this and thinking about other situations, what about items like lead-based paint? Older houses where they used lead-based paint years back, where does that come in here?
I don't know that this would really address that. You know, if we're going into a situation where we're tearing houses down and doing, you know, asbestos abatement and things like that, I think residential structures are somewhat exempt from that. But we're not really regulating that part
All right,
of
so
it.
we're not
It's
going to go out and take a sample off the paint inside a house and say because it's lead-based you have to?
No.
Okay, good. All right.
Ms. Shirley, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for all being proactive in this. It sounds like we're off to a pretty good start on this.
Thank
Appreciate you very
And
much.
I would like to add one more thing, that we did present this, as was mentioned, to our Construction Advisory and Appeals Board, and they did recommend that y'all consider this for adoption.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, we're now to consent agenda. Are there any items council would like pulled off for separate consideration? Before we vote on this, I would like to point something out, please, that on consent agenda item A, this grant was not something that I thought of, unfortunately. I was approached by a representative from Longview High School, and this is given by the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And I encourage other high schools to approach me as well. All it requires is my signature, and then they're able to apply for the grant. But without the mayor's signature, you cannot apply for the grant through the school. So this isn't something I'm doing just for Longview High School. They approached me, and I'm happy to participate any way that we can further education for our community. So the other schools want to participate, please come to me. I'd be more than happy to put this on our agenda. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're to zoning.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
I would like to offer a motion that with zoning item A, that we table this item until perhaps a later date in April. Second.
Okay. Point of clarification, Mr. Finley? It's a motion and a second. I have speaker cards on this item. Does that mean they get to speak?
You could vote to see if you want to consider it at this time. If it's tabled, we'll just wait until another time. And
So if it's tabled and the speaker is not allowed to speak, is that what we're saying?
well, I mean, if it's within your, I guess the body could. But if you're not considering that, I mean, you could vote. You vote on the motion to table, then you're not going to be considering it. I guess they could have a moment to speak under just the general procedures that you have, that it was on the agenda. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. That's what I'm asking, because the reason I'm saying that, because typically I'll ask these people to speak during citizen comment, but I asked them if they wanted to wait until the items came about, and if we're going to table it, that means they don't get the chance to speak, and that's not what I was intending, in other words.
And that's what I'm saying. You could do it under that.
And he may not want to speak, I don't know, but I feel obligated to at least allow that if we decide to table this item. Is council agreeable with this? Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the item is now tabled. Now, I do have a speaker card. Mr. Alston, would you like to speak on this issue? Very good. Thank you. Well, sorry for all that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, Aaron. Okay, now we have zoning item B. Public hearing to consider application PD 16-03. Mrs. Choi.
Thank you, Mayor Mack, members of council, and City Manager Willard. I'll get to my slide. Excuse me while I slide through. Okay, the applicant is requesting to rezone PD 42 to, which is office, to PD 1603 for office and residential. Back up here. The applicant is proposing to construct an office building, seen here in the front, with residential in the back. The attached residence is intended for the owner to reside. The owner of the office building in the front will reside in the back. The previous plan development was for offices only, so this is why they're coming back through the plan development process to submit the site plan and to change the use from office to office and residential. The plan development site plan does propose a one-story, 4,670 square foot structure, which encompasses 2,836 square feet of residential, as seen here in the back, with a 746 square foot garage back here, and a 1,088 square foot of office space in the front along Judson Road. The front setback is approximately 20 feet in the front, and these are all measured from property lines. So these are the property lines right here in the white. 20 feet in the front. The right side setback would be 0. The left side would be approximately 100 feet. And then in the rear, it would be approximately 10 feet. And this is measured from this rear property line right here where there's HOA area back here. The site plan does show 6 parking spaces along here, and this is the original submittal that was submitted to Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm going to slide through and show y'all the revised submittal. Through the plan development process, this project will be required to meet all of the City of Longview requirements. Fredonia Street is a collector as well as Judson, which is appropriate for this type of use. At the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the commission recommended approval of the submittal with a condition that this landscape island be installed pending approval of the fire code. After the meeting, staff did meet with the applicant, had a meeting with the applicant and surrounding neighbors to resolve the issue about the driveway onto Yates. The revised site plan was submitted to staff by the applicant with changes that all parties agree upon and meet the fire code. The applicant has agreed to close this right-in only driveway that's off of Judson Road, or Fredonia, actually, right here. Right in, they've agreed to close this and create a new driveway here, a full-blown driveway, leaving this sort of decel lane, and then installing this landscape island here with the handicap parking here, and then leaving this driveway open to Yates for residential use only for the residents in the back. A petition was submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission prior to the P&Z meeting with 33% of the notified owners in opposition. Let me get to it. However, they have submitted, sorry, let me go back to the map. 33% of the neighbors did sign that petition, which would have required a supermajority vote. However, the neighborhood has submitted a revised petition that states they are opposed to the original submittal. However, they support the amended request that is seen here, that with the landscape island, with no access from the development. Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of this request. It was 4-2, with a condition that the landscape island be installed pending approval of the fire code, which this revised site plan was submitted to staff. Staff does recommend approval of this request, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
This item requires a public hearing. The public hearing is now open. I do have 2 speaker cards. Mike Smith.
My name is Mike Smith. I live at 1104 Yates, and I represent the 33% of the adjoining property owners and about 70 other property owners in the surrounding subdivisions. We reaffirm our protest against the original application and our interpretation of the planning and zoning recommendation. However, we are in support and will respectfully withdraw our petition, provided that the city approval requires a permanent landscape barrier that will never allow any form of vehicular travel between the single family residence onto Yates Drive. It would only be used by the residents. And it would not allow any business traffic to enter Yates Drive. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
All right, thank you.
Another speaker card, Richard Wade.
Mr. Council, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Willard, I'm the Wade part of the Dennis Wade, her employee. We would simply like to admit, we would like to reinforce, we are very in favor of the revised submittal. It was a plan that the city staff was very inspirational in helping us with, as well as the neighbors were happy with it and everything like that. So we are very in support of the revised submittal plan. I just want to do that. Our architect, Mr. Davis, is here. If there's any specific questions or anything like that, better for him to answer those kinds of things probably about anything like that. But any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any other speaker cards on this item? Public hearing is now closed, or discussion? Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to make a comment. I really appreciate, this was a lot of effort by a lot of parties, so I just wanted to thank the Wades, thank the neighbors, thank our city staff. Everybody did a great job coming together to make this an agreeable project that's going to be a great development, great neighbors. So thank you, everybody, for working hard and putting in time and resources into that project. And if there's no discussion, I would like to make the motion so I can word it
Just one second.
correctly.
The public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion?
Yes, I would like to move to approve the revised submittal that's before council tonight, which would include a permanent landscape barrier that would not allow vehicular traffic to travel from the residence on Yates into the business parking.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all and all those parties involved. Appreciate you very much. We're to action item. Consider a resolution amending the City of Longview's 2015-16 fee resolution, allow setting certain fees related to mobile food units and various other subjects. Mr. Karen.
Good evening, and I think everybody noticed the video of the water flowing down the trail, and we're considering with sports tourism possibly submitting a bid for hosting kayaking or something, but I think we'll pass on that for this time. So anyway, sorry, I had to. We're here tonight to talk about the fee resolution amendments that have been before you. These were at the last meeting as well, and so if you have any questions about the specific areas, certainly I think our staff is able to address each of those. So one of the areas that we took a look at was Mod Cobb, which wasn't related to the food truck issue itself, but it did have some changes to the language in relation to generating hotel nights and providing some fee waivers for those types of things. Building inspection, again, this is part of the code that is required, and the fees associated with that part of the mobile food units. Community Services Administration, again, this is part of the food trucks and allowing them in the parking lots that the city owns. So not the parks themselves, but city-owned, other city-owned properties and what the fees would be for those. Environmental health, these are the fees that are related to operating a mobile food unit within the city of Longview and looking at the food safety aspect. And Ms. Hill talked about specifically what the different types of permits that would be available. And I believe, so if you have any questions about the hazardous food, we'd certainly be able to address those. So the last item, which is why I'm here and talking to you tonight, which I believe is why this was tabled until the meeting this evening, was to talk about the Parks and Recreation aspect of allowing mobile food units to operate in parks. And so we want to talk about having a park access fee, which is in order to operate a mobile food unit in a park, you would have to submit a fee of $500 to be approved to be able to do that. And then if you want to operate in a park at any time, of which the 11 parks you approved last meeting, you would have to submit a fee of $50 per unit per day. And again, those sites are specifically marked within those different parks. If there is a concession stand that is open that day, there would be an additional $25 that would be added to that fee. That fee would be collected by the Parks and Recreation Department, and then at some point later on, probably as we square up with all the different fees associated with the associations, we would remit payment essentially to those associations for the use of those. And so I think that was the main issue. So essentially, if there is not a concession stand operating within a park for that given day, it would be $50 for that spot. If there was a concession stand that was operating that day within that park, then there would be an additional $25 that would be added to that, and we would charge that. And so we would do that administratively, being able to look at the schedules that the associations put forward to us in the tournament games that are scheduled, so we know when the concession stands are opened and when we'd be able to assess that additional fee and then pass that along to the youth associations. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure you'll have some. So.
Council, question to Mr. Karen?
One thing I would like to do is amend the amendment, so the concession stand fee would be increased to $50 per day per unit. I don't know that that will make up for the loss to the concession stands, but I want to assure the people with the softball association, with baseball association, that I'll be looking at this next year to see if this has really affected the concession stand income. I'll be getting with Mr. Karen or with anybody else who would like to discuss this with me. And if this is really impacting the concession stand, the money coming in from the concession stands, I'm going to be more than willing to take a look at this again next year. So I realize people aren't necessarily, everybody's not happy about having the food trucks in there, but we'll take a look at that again in the future. And I would like to amend that so that becomes $50 versus the $25. And I don't know, do I need to make that a motion?
No, not yet. It's not ready yet. Okay, I have a few questions that I'm just really perplexed about. We voted to allow food trucks. That's what we did. We voted for food trucks, correct? And then we voted to allow them in every park in Longview. Is that correct?
11 of the parks.
I thought we voted to allow them in every park in Longview last meeting.
The 11 parks that we presented to City Council.
Okay, the 11 parks, right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And now we're discussing what we're going to charge them to go in on the days that concession stands are there and operating, right?
This would be the fee that if there was or was not a
Right.
concession stand.
So we're doing
Yes,
that
sir.
now.
Yes, sir.
My understanding was that the Parks Board said no parks, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the task force said, was it 4 parks?
Yes, sir.
And the city staff was recommending that at the last meeting, and then we voted for 11 parks. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I don't have a problem with the food trucks in the parks, but what I'm trying to get at is why are we forcing this issue around concession stands? I have 2 concerns. Number one, as you so well provided for, Mr. Karen, every one of these organizations that operate these concession stands are nonprofit organizations, correct?
Yes, sir.
So now we're competing against our nonprofits in town. I see that as a hurdle for me to jump over. When we have already prevented them from operating on 5 days per month, isn't that what we've already voted on?
Yes, sir.
Which, if they want to say 5 Saturdays, that's 5 Saturdays per month. Which is mostly when I'm assuming tournaments will take place. But then we have league games going on Monday through Friday, correct?
Yeah,
When baseball season comes around and soccer season comes around and softball season comes around and football season comes around, correct?
Yes, sir.
Pretty much their leagues go every night, right? And those concession stands are open every night on those times to do what they do with their monies, which, as we're seeing from all these organizations, is they put it back into their programs because they're nonprofits. They help their kids play. And personally, I want to see every kid be able to play that can play. And if they're using these monies to help subsidize these kids, that's a concern to me. Now, does the $50 a day cover that? Because I don't know. But my theory is, no way. Because you're splitting it between baseball, softball, and soccer all on the same night that play. So you're splitting $50 three ways, if just at those three. I don't see that as being a makeup for what they're doing with this money, which I deem as good use of money. We as a city allowed these organizations to occupy these concession stands based on an ordinance we passed in 2009. And we gave them the ability to do it for $4 a game, which means we're doing it so that they can make money, right? That's why we allowed it. We didn't charge them $75 a game or $100 a game. We charged them $4 a game to utilize the concession stands. And they put thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into these concession stands to be able to run them and to put their money back into their organizations. And once again, I have no problems with the food trucks in the parks, but I do have a problem with competing against these nonprofit organizations that are helping our kids in Longview. And if you say, wait, we're going to limit competition, that's not the same. We're not. Competition against nonprofits is not competition at all. That's not competition. And if we're saying it's going to take the parks to make the food trucks successful, if that's our theory behind this, that the parks are going to make the food trucks successful, that means our concession stands are going to fail. Because they're going to take so much away from the concession stands that our concession stands will fail, if that's what it takes to make the food truck successful. So my question is, why are we, and as Mr. Wright said, if this is an issue, we'll look at it next year. Why don't we flip that? Why don't we look at it this year and see how the food trucks do everywhere else? And then if we need them in the parks, we can always add them to the parks. So they can go to the parks whenever the kids aren't playing or the kids aren't having concession stands that are competing. Because I truly feel like we have to support our kids, because that's the future of our community. And I don't want to see one kid left out of an organization that they might be able to play in, because these organizations no longer subsidize their entry fees and give scholarships and provide for those children. So I wish it was a perfect world and everybody could be at the same place at the same time, but sometimes we have to make tough decisions and we have to say, okay, what's better for our community? I think food trucks are going to be great for the community. I do. I hope they're successful in every form and fashion. Otherwise, we went through a lot of heartache for nothing. But I sure don't want to see our youth leagues fail or struggle because of this. So there has to be a balance. And if we can say, come in and be in the parks, come be in the parks, but don't compete with our kids. That's a concern of mine. And I just want to voice that, because I don't know how else we're going to do it other than to say you can come anytime you want to, as long as there's no concession stand being operated. Because I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think that's fantastic. So that's my 2 cents. Mr. Allen.
Okay. I would just general comments here. In this, I want to talk about the concession stands, and what primarily, let me say that this does not apply to the Girls Softball Association, because it's a little different the way they do it. All right, if you're at the, and I also, the football, it does not apply to Girls Softball Association, which is primarily what the fellow talked about originally, and the football games does not apply. That applies to all others. If you, on the concession stands, they are currently operated by private individuals. These individuals operate these concession stands for their personal income. Now, when you walk up to that concession stand and I'm just going to use the figure of $100. You buy $100 worth of refreshments at that concession stand, the operator receives $80 of that money. 20% of that, $20 goes to the nonprofit. $20 goes to the nonprofit. $80 goes to the operator. Now, within this concession stand, the way I understand it, and Mr. Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, all the equipment belongs to the city that's in that when I say all, and I'm not saying 99.9%, but I'm saying, roughly speaking, 90%. In other words, the large assets, the equipment in that concession stand belongs to the city. The operator does not bring his own stove. He does not bring his own refrigerator. He operates city equipment. And the way I understand it, the utilities for the operation of this equipment is paid by the city also. So literally what the operator brings in, he brings in his inventory, he prepares it in that concession stand, he gives 20% of his gross revenue to the nonprofit. He takes 80% to pay for his inventory and to pay for his time and effort. So in effect, we are reducing that 20% that's going to the nonprofit. So the 20% going to the nonprofit is offset by the concession stand fee that we're talking about paying at this time, and that's the way I understand it.
I think all we're trying to do is open up as many venues as possible to this fledgling industry that we're trying to bring into the community. You know, my friends are now calling me Ed Food Truck Moore. So, you know, at this point, you know, willing to do anything. I fully support your idea, Mr. Wright, of doubling the concession fee, and then 6 months from now, ask staff to come back with a report on how well the parks are being used or not being used, or how well food trucks are doing elsewhere. And then, you know, in October or whenever that is, if we need to change things, we can change things. But we're just trying to offer them an opportunity for some entrepreneurs to start a new business.
Anyone else?
I have a question, and maybe you could help me with the right thing that I would like to be asking. But I have a lot of questions just kind of about how that works, and I feel like I need to understand better. I do not feel bad about taking any money away from a private individual that's making 80% off something, but I sure don't want to take a dime away from girls softball that's, you know, operating differently. So I truly feel very conflicted about the issue because I don't have any data to look at that would say, you know, this $50 fee would help subsidize the 20%. So I think to David's point, if we could have more of an ongoing conversation instead of maybe just next year, I feel like we have to start somewhere, you know, and we may not make the right first decision, but we can always come back and do it better. But we just have to start somewhere. Without data, I don't know where else to go except for starting and then being open to being flexible as we move forward. But I personally would like to know more about how everybody is operating so that I understood that better and so I would know what impact we were having on them. Yeah.
I think there are a number of issues, and certainly we can address those at a later time. But I think having mobile food units operating in parks is a natural outreach or natural venue for them. That, you know, how they impact concessions, I don't know that any of us know. The challenge I think that all of us are facing is with Lear Park primarily, in the immense space that it has. It's 180 acres and it has 4 different concession stands, and there are 5 different areas or 6 different areas within that area. And so I understand the situation that all of you guys are in, and hopefully you can appreciate what we have tried to come up with to find a good solution for all of this. And we've taken into consideration a lot of the concerns that the concession operations have. And so we have taken that into account in putting things together. And so I think it is important for us to have food trucks that operate or have the ability to operate within our parks. And how we go about doing that and what fees are appropriate, I'm not sure what the best or the right thing for that is either. But it does take us moving forward and getting something approved and then evaluating it. And I think the only way that we get better in being able to solve all of our issues is by doing that, getting something in place. If we make a mistake, I'm the first one that will admit that, hey, you know what, we're not doing things the way that we need to be doing it. Let's take a look at it again. And certainly we'll have the opportunity to, as we bring a fee resolution forward in September for you guys to take a look at. So we will have additional data as you've requested, as well as Mr. Wright, Mr. Moore, Mr. Allen, and Ms. Williams, Ms. Nadi, all of you guys, Mayor Mack. So we certainly will be able to provide all of that data as soon as we're able to get it. So.
And I will say that the Softball Association keeps some of the best books I've seen. Their financial statements are very easy to understand. They document every tournament and every cost and every revenue line item. You all are to be commended for your accounting standards, if you will. You know, I went back and looked at 3 years' worth of their data. You know, how much this would affect their bottom line with respect to concessions or overall operations. That's why I think we would like to see additional monitoring going on. I agree, Mayor, that this is a difficult decision, but I'd like to give it a try.
I'm at a loss for a first time, kind of, sort of. I want to say this. Our initial intention was not at all to, you know, neglect or not think in terms of the children. I totally agree with what the mayor is saying. In fact, in our initial decision, and I just want to make sure the public understands, in our initial vote, we took that vote and we cast our votes because we were actually trying to accommodate our youth sports organizations because they're an integral part of our sports tourism community here in Longview. Needless to say, we do need more information, I guess. I don't know that I want any more information. I'm kind of an information overload right now. But I just wanted to clarify that. And I would also like to say this. There is a very clear process in every step that has been taken. And so when you hear the task force, the Parks Board, who received that recommendation, and ultimately the council, there is a process. And I just, you know, I want to continue to encourage citizens to remain involved in that process, because sometimes by the time it gets to us, we may be missing a little something. But I do want to commend you, and I do think perhaps we should move forward and try to have, how many food trucks do we actually have operating right now again?
Well, until we have fees in place to know how many are applying, we don't
potential,
really know.
though?
But I think
I'll
there's
say it.
two to three that we believe will be operational as soon as
Okay.
fees are approved for everything.
And that gives us an opportunity to evaluate later. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Go ahead, Mr. Allen.
One thing I forgot to mention, Scott, would you please inform us as far as restricted locations where these food trucks, I know they're in the park, but I understand there's actually a physical location that they have to set up in. In other words, they cannot be in the parking lot right next door to the concession stand. And I think there's some of the people that might be concerned about. Would you explain that to us, please?
Yes, sir. And we can certainly provide maps to all of council for all of the different park locations that have been chosen. But that is one of our considerations is to be able to place those parking spots, essentially the mobile food unit sites, in spots that minimize traffic concerns coming into and out of, but then also in a location that allows for the use of the park in general. The main intent and purpose of that park is for people to go to that park close to their activity and go in. And so we don't want to take up prime parking spots for mobile food units. So we've located those in areas where we believe would provide the minimalist impact on the park operations overall. And so when we took a look at all of those different parking lots, that's what we did, is we located those. And so again, we haven't those have not been fully vetted with the associations before we do that. Again, that's one of the things that I think that is we need to do proactively, say, okay, we have identified this as the potential site. What do you think that needs to be the appropriate location, other than not there, of course, but what other possibilities do you see as an option for us? And again, most parking lots have one, and there are a few that we would feel that two may be appropriate.
Discussion, council? I do look forward to food trucks being in our parks. I'm just very concerned about this competitive situation that we're dealing with, because I keep hearing everybody say, I want more information, I want more details. And we don't have those right now. That's not available. But what is available is the one fact that's going to be holding true. If we allow food trucks to compete with the concession stands, the nonprofits will lose money. That's the one fact that we know. You don't have to have any more information about that, because if they lose $1, then they're losing money. So we do know that. So that's something we just must be very cautious of, or cognizant of. So with that, is there a motion?
I'd like to move that we accept the resolution fees, the new resolution fees, with a change to the concession stand fee of $50. And I'd also like in there that there will be a review no later than October 1st of how the food units are affecting the concession stands. And we will take that up at that time to see, to discuss what the concession stand fees need to be at that time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Mr. Karen, thanks for all the work you've done and all the people that have been involved. This has been an ongoing battle, and we really appreciate everybody's input, because input is very good. Information is valuable. Never forget that. Okay, we are to items of community interest. Mr. Moore?
Nothing, Mayor.
Ms. Snoddy?
Just want to say thank you to those of you who attended my town hall meeting on last week. I do appreciate your support, and I actually look forward to my next one. Thank you.
Ms. Williams?
The Eastside community will host a fundraiser event, Leaving a Legacy Behind, for the east side of Longview on Saturday, March the 25th. Friday, March the 24th. Whatever that Friday is, okay? Good Friday. Thank you, Jimmy. 7 p.m. at the East Texas Builders Association. Tickets are $50 per person. For many of you who may not know, District 3 is located on the east side of Longview. So do please come out and join us for that endeavor. Thank you.
Ms. Ishihara?
Nothing.
Mr. Wright? Mr. Allen?
No, sir.
Mr. Willard? Okay, daylight savings time starts this Sunday. Remember to set your clocks forward 1 hour. Forward, remember that. I tend to forget that sometimes. This means it's time to change your batteries in your smoke detectors, so please be aware of that. Due to recent storms, the Sanitation Division reminds residential sanitation customers that bulky item collection is available for collection of yard debris. Call 903-237-1250 to schedule a pickup or take debris to the compost site at 2020 Swinging Bridge Road. High school seniors, remember, Mayor Mack scholarship applications are due by April the 1st. Please go to longviewtexas.gov/mayor for more information on that. Look forward to seeing your application and reading your essays. The next thing. I asked Mr. Willard to get me some information on our Longview transit system, because I would like to see us consider expanding our transit system to include service on Sundays. Because I feel like if we're taking people to work and back and places they need to go, then we should take them to church as well. And I would like to see us look into that. It's going to be expensive, and we'll have to really monitor how we can do that. I don't know that it can be done, but it will never be done if we don't look into it. And I appreciate you, Mr. Willard, and getting with Scott Lewis, and I look forward to discussion of that in the future, because I think it's something that we owe to our citizens, and we should find a way to make that happen if it's at all possible. Sometimes things just aren't possible. Sometimes good ideas are good, but they just don't come to fruition. But we're going to look into it, okay? Yes. Thank you very much. as you know, this is a council week, which means we had a survey question. This was interesting, pretty fitting as well. From time to time, the mayor and city council may appoint residents to a task force to help research a particular idea or concept. Do you think that appointing residents to a task force is a good idea for city government to obtain more information about these things? Overwhelmingly, 95% said yes, and I agree. And I want to thank citizens that were willing to sacrifice their time and their efforts and their devotion to the city to put in your input, to give us your areas of expertise. A lot of times we have these task force, we do so, we appoint people that have knowledge that we don't necessarily obtain or have. And so it's very nice when we have citizens willing to step out there, give us their input. And you know, we don't always agree, but you know what? We always learn. And when we learn, we're much more educated. And when we're more educated, we make better decisions, and the future is very bright. When we do these things, we include the citizens. I think it's very, very important. And I just commend all those willing to do that, and thank you for your participation. Here's a fun one. Which of the following does the City of Longview's Parks Recreation Department not offer? Photography class, belly dancing class, line dancing class, tennis class. Okay, how many of y'all in the audience took the survey? Just raise your hand if you took the survey. Not enough of y'all, I can tell you. Okay, so good. Okay, how many of y'all think that the Parks Department offers photography classes? You are correct, they do. How many think they offer belly dancing classes? Whoa, it's kind of scary. You are correct, they do. How many think they offer line dancing classes? Correct again. Tennis classes? No tennis classes, that's right. Very good. We were very educated. 39% got that right, and that was the most picked answer. So, fun survey this week. Thanks for participating. Y'all need to participate more, okay? It's not that hard. It takes about 1 minute. Okay. Yes, sir. Mr. Willard.
Are food trucks allowed to belly dancing?
Absolutely.
I didn't quite get that.
Food trucks and CPR.
Okay.
To belly dancing. Okay. Book club time. Do we have a video? Okay, let's watch the video.
Today, let's talk about positive, contagious leadership. Isn't that what we all want out of those leading us? I know I do, and I know that that's what I want to be as your mayor. Who wants to be led by negative and grumpy people? I certainly don't. On page 109, Jack recounts what Joyce said. When you feel good, others around you feel good, and this makes the people around you feel real good. People are always buying you and your energy. I can think of people in my life who it didn't matter what they would ask me to do, I would do it because they were a positive force to be reckoned with, and I wanted to be on their team. That's how I want people to see Longview, as the most positive and energetic community in Texas. And when they hear about us, say, I want to be where they are and do whatever they are doing. We can do this, Longview, so let's hop on the energy bus together and drive Longview forward.
Okay, just so you all know, those buses are really cool. And that was a brand new one I was in. I could live in that thing. It's very, very nice. You know, it's very simple. Positive, contagious leadership. And I hope that's what you elected me to do. Because if you didn't, you cast your vote in the wrong direction. Because no matter what happens, I'm going to be positive, and I hope it's contagious. Because we can look at anything we want to from a negative standpoint or a positive standpoint. And it's what you make of it, and it's the outcome that you will get. Because I've never seen a positive result come from a negative attitude. So, you know, this book is enjoyable to me. I've read it twice now because I read it each Monday. We had great discussion Monday night on the book club. It's just a matter of how you choose to live and how you choose to perceive yourself. And you know what? When you perceive yourself in a way, I hope others are perceiving you in the way you're perceiving you. Because if you're not, you need to take a better look in the mirror. Council, any discussion on this?
I will. I jotted down one of my favorite comments, one of my favorite quotes from the book. Your positive energy and vision must be greater than anyone and everyone's negativity. And I love that because I'm a very high energy person. And it's so interesting whenever I'm down, even if it's on the phone, if somebody knows me, they know that I'm in a spell, as the old people used to call it. And I'm able, typically, if it's someone who really knows me, to latch on because they're being positive and just pushing me ahead with that positive energy. So I think that that is how we overcome a lot of negativity, because a lot of times people give off negativity and they have no clue, such as the gentleman in the book initially. So that's my favorite quote for this week of the book.
I got one too. Chief energy officers live and work with enthusiasm. They tap the power of their heart by getting excited about being alive, by filling up with loads of positive energy, and by being optimistic about life and work. They don't let fear stop them. No, they charge forward with positive and powerful energy and look at challenges like the one you are facing as an opportunity to learn, grow, and succeed. And I think that's exactly what you were saying earlier. We have differences of opinions up here, and we don't always have all the right answers. So if we take an opportunity where we don't always agree to be negative, we've lost the opportunity to learn something and to grow. So I think that's a really powerful point as well, and we appreciate your positive leadership in making that happen.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The first page of the Feeling Good chapter 23, it's not in italics or anything, but it just kind of hit me. Emotion stands for energy in motion, and your emotional state is all about the energy flowing through you. So instead of letting negative emotions take you down the dark road of negativity, sadness, and despair, we can take control of our emotions, charge them up, and let the positive energy flow. So our emotion has a lot to do with how we go forward and tackle things. And that just hit me.
Excellent. I can tell you all this. Like I said, I try to be as positive as I can, but you know who I really truly role model after in this situation? And I know it's going to come as a shock, but our city manager is one of the most positive, energetic guys that I know. And I know this. He has a very, very daunting task. When you look at the number of employees that he has to, it's okay. I would have warned you, but then you'd have had something smart to say about me. Because he's very quick-witted, he would have come back and turned this around on me, so I didn't let him know I was going to talk about this. But you know, he has the task of running our city and running every department and each department head, and everything flows from the top. And you know, I don't consider us the top. I consider Mr. Willard the top, and then everybody's underneath him. And, you know, it's such a pleasure to work in this city around positive people and to be around a department, every department. And every department, I can tell you, has got this energy now. And I'm seeing it, and I'm hearing about it, and I get compliments on it day in and day out. And every time I want to say, thanks for calling me, but call them, tell them, let them know. And I try to convey these to Mr. Willard so he can convey them on down, because I'm telling you, when our city reflects in a positive manner, we're going to receive positive. And that's just all. I can say that a million times, and Mr. Willard is the epitome of that, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate working with him and every department head here, every one of you all. You come, you sit through these meetings. They're boring to y'all because you already know everything, and we're having to rehash what you've already presented to us. But you sit here, you smile, you give us your best, and I really, truly appreciate that. There's never been a time that I haven't called any one of you all, and you haven't responded in such a happy way. And I think, wow, they're having a great day. Why can't I have a great day? And I don't, trust me, I don't ever call unless there's problems. I mean, I'm not calling to say, hey, good job down there, because that's not who I am. But when there's a problem and I have to talk to them and I get such great responses back, the energy level is just lifted to me. And I can tell you, 10 years ago, for my 9 years, it wasn't that way. I can tell you it wasn't that way. And it is different now. And it's great. And I want to see that continue. And I hope the community continues with this, because I know we're seeing it throughout the community. I see it. I get stories daily about things that people are doing, from the Go Giver to the Energy Bus to who knows what's coming next. But once again, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Willard. Thank you to city staff. Thank you to our citizens of Longview. You all make Longview positive. Let's keep it going. So with that, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.